Wildwood Film Festival 2018 is happening this month, and I have filmmaker Steve Concotelli on the phone with me today. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm doing just fine, thank you.
Now, your documentary, Out of Time, is showing at Wildwood this year, and I have to say I loved it. I really loved it. Growing up in the 80s, watching those movies, in fact, I've watched those movies numerous times. That car was awesome. I wanted that car.
We all did, I think. Yeah, I grew up in the 80s as well, and I remember seeing Back to the Future for the first time, and for me, the star of the movie was not Michael J. Fox or Chris Lloyd, but it was the Time Machine. So to be an adult and have the chance to help tell the story of how the original one was restored was a dream come true.
So how did you get involved in the project and also creating the documentary?
Well, I was fortunate enough to be friends with Joe Walser, who is the head of the restoration team. Now, Joe is a super Back to the Future fan, beyond any type of fandom I had ever known. And Universal Studios asked him to restore the car for Universal Studios. And so I was very close friends with Joe, and I had an option to be on the team. But as the restoration was getting started, I asked around to say, hey, is anybody recording this or documenting this? Because this is something that Back to the Future fans would love to see. And it turns out nobody had any plans to record it. And so that suddenly fell on my shoulders. I went out, bought a camera, and just started shooting in the hopes that someday we could turn it into a film, which is what we did.
Very cool, very cool. And one of the things I noticed in the documentary is that once word kind of got out that Doc Brown's Time Machine was being restored, it seemed like a lot of people were very eager to jump on board to be a part of the restoration team. I mean, what was the energy and excitement like for the group of restorers?
Well, it was a combination of being very thrilled and being very terrified. I was thrilled because it was great to know that so many fans were interested in seeing the car restored and they wanted to be involved in the restoration itself. But at the same time, it was very intimidating because you have a planet full of very rabid, very specific Back to the Future fans across the world who want to make sure that the car was restored perfectly. And perfect is a very high benchmark for the restoration team to live up to. And, they know that if any detail was wrong, fans across the world would never stop giving them grief about it. So it was a lot of pressure internally for us on the team to make sure everything was done right.
And the restoration itself, according to the documentary, they had a year to get it done, right?
Yeah, a year seems like plenty of time to do a restoration, but I got to tell you, when you're there, it's not. And I think the biggest problem was that most of us who were on the team, there were about 12 of us, and we all had full-time jobs on top of doing the restoration. So we would go to work at our regular jobs during the day, and then on nights and sometimes all weekend long, we would work on the car. And it was like having another full-time job on top of your first full-time job. And that just makes extremely long weekends, extremely late nights, and extremely tired people in the morning.
One of the things that I noticed in the documentary, too, is that it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns and smiling faces. I think one of the things that you really did well successfully showed that there was both the joy of it and like the hiccups and frustrations. And you could have easily just focused on the positive aspect. Why did you focus on both of them?
I focused on a lot of the hardships because that's what it was, and that was what honestly happened. As a documentary filmmaker, you always have to kind of pick which reality you want to portray, and that's a tricky situation and a fine line sometimes for filmmakers to walk. But my goal was to portray the restoration honestly, and the honest situation is that restoring this car is very, very difficult, stressful, hard. There were a lot of arguments, a lot of late nights, and a project like that isn't all sunshine and roses. It can't be. And so I very much wanted to portray the struggle because not only was it real, but I think it's important for fans to know that the restoration team struggled with every single detail. They debated it. They struggled with it. They worked on it. Things had to be redone so that fans know just how much work these guys put into it, and how much love and attention that they were willing to give of themselves to make the car right.
Mm-hmm.
And besides, watching people struggle is way more fun.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
As a filmmaker, I love seeing people struggle. I mean, struggle on screen and actually struggling just to make the movie, because making the movie itself wasn't sunshine and roses.
Mm-hmm.
Any documentary filmmaker will tell you how hard it is to make a film. And if they say it was easy, they're liars.
Uh-huh. And so you're tied to Wisconsin. One of the things with Wildwood Film Festival is that we really want to highlight Wisconsin filmmakers. And you were born and raised in Waukesha. How did you make kind of the leap from Wisconsin to out to Hollywood and everything?
It surely is a long leap, let me tell you. Yes, I was born and raised in Waukesha. I attended college in Madison, so I have very, very deep ties to Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
But I made the jump to California shortly after college. I was producing local cable commercials in Milwaukee, and a job opened within the same company in the Los Angeles branch. And I thought, hey, this is my chance. I applied, and I really didn't have serious thoughts about moving out here, but when I got the job, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. Did what everybody does. You know, I packed my car with my TV and 2 suitcases and drove across country to try to make it in Los Angeles, just like you always hear people do. And that was 17 years ago, and I've been here ever since.
Uh-huh.
You know, when I moved out here, I didn't have a specific plan of how to break into the industry or what to do. I did what most of us do. I moved out here and figured it out as I went and made a lot of friends and built a career out of it.
My final question for you is, what advice would you give other filmmakers who want to create a documentary?
Don't. No, I'm kidding. The advice I would give is to surround yourself with a team of 2 or 3 people that you trust and that you can rely on to help you get the film to the finish line. I did most of Out of Time myself, and it was by far the biggest mistake I made.
Mm-hmm.
I took on way too much doing this project, and things can fall through the cracks because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a team of 2 or 3 people who can help pitch in, whose opinions you respect, who share your vision for the film, they will help you, they will encourage you, and on those days that you really, really, really don't want to do it, they can carry the load for a while, and together you can all help the film get across the finish line. That's the most important thing, is making sure that you get the film done, because so many films don't even get finished anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for joining me today, Steve, on the phone. Looking forward to seeing Out of Time up on the big screen at Wildwood Film Festival this month. Man, love that car.
Thank you, and I will be there in person. I'm flying home for the festival, so yes, I will have a chance to meet you and any other Back to the Future Time Machine fans. I'm happy to discuss, and I will see you there.
Awesome. Can't wait to meet you.
Thank you.